Welcome back to Inside City Hall, where we are turning back to Albany. Lawmakers will be returning to the Capitol tomorrow for the first day of the new state legislative session. It's the start of a session that comes as Governor Hochul has vetoed a number of high-profile bills that the legislature passed last year. There's a lot on the to-do list. The state is still facing pressure to address housing affordability after last year ended without action. And Hochul resorted to signing executive orders on housing in order to get some projects accomplished. All of this comes as lawmakers and the governor will need to work together to close a $4 billion gap before the April budget deadline. Meanwhile, in 1 week, Governor Hochul is set to deliver her State of the State address and lay out her priorities. Joining me now to talk about where all of this now stands is State Senate Deputy Majority Leader Michael Gianaris. Thanks for being here. Happy New Year. Very good to see you.
Happy New Year, Errol, to you and all your viewers.
Now, the governor vetoed a number of bills, including the Grieving Families Act, the Wrongful Convictions Act. There was a ban on non-compete agreements that she vetoed, a transparency bill to make clear who owns LLCs, the legal form that covers most rental properties. Which of these is there, and should we assume that you're going to bring all of these back, or are you going to put it to a test about whether or not you could assemble a veto-proof majority? What's the process like?
Well, let me add one to your list, too. There was the bill that I wrote that would require disclosure of lobbying on confirmations, and that was something we saw a lot of money spent on last year, and to this day we have no idea where that money came from. But there are a lot of bills, typically, that a governor vetoes. She has signed into law many more bills than she has vetoed. It's part of the legislative process. We'll take a look at all of them. Typically, we repass bills that we have already passed. We're on record as supporting them. But if there are some accommodations we can make to work collaboratively with the governor, that's always the easiest path forward. So we'll take a look at all of them, and we'll choose how we proceed.
There was a statement from the governor's spokesman that suggested that she's not entirely happy with the process. The statement says that pointed out that the legislature passed 896 bills, over 500 of which passed in the final days of the last session, most without a single hearing or opportunity for public comment. It sounds like they're not entirely happy with that process. Is there a different way to do business up there?
Well, frankly, it sounds like there's a complete ignorance of the process on behalf of the executive, and that's troubling to say the least. The fact that we passed so many bills in the last week of session is interesting, because what they don't mention is that the last week of session was 6 months ago. So they had plenty of time to review all of these bills. And of course, they have been public. They go through a committee process. There is an extensive legislative process that leads to these bills passing on the floor of the chamber. The public has known about them for weeks and for months. The advocacy on it has been, many of them, has been very intense. So they have no one to blame but themselves if they didn't have time to review bills. It's really a pretty weak excuse. They should just say they don't support these things if that's where they landed, and we could fight it out on the merits of the issues. But there's no point in casting aspersions on the legislative process, which actually worked quite well and was very transparent.
The governor issued a blanket veto of 32 different bills that would have created commissions or study groups, none of which are necessarily related. It really covered a wide range of different environmental and other kind of issues. The governor said in her veto that it would have cost $35 million and that money, therefore, should have been part of the budget process. Is that the actual problem, or is there something else going on there?
Well, I don't know. I mean, sometimes I wonder if she's just looking to increase the number of her vetoes to show independence from the legislature or some such thing. Of course, we're happy to raise these issues in or outside the budget, but the fact is that we usually hit a brick wall when it comes to considering them. But like I said, a lot of this is just typical legislative process between the legislature and the executive. We'll take a look at her concerns to the extent they're merit-based on any of these, and if we can reach accommodation, that's always the easiest path forward.
Speaking of a brick wall that I think a lot of my viewers are concerned about, we've certainly reported on it a lot, is the deadlock over affordable housing. Is there a way to uncouple basic development procedures and mechanisms like a new tax credit program and separate that from anti-eviction provisions? That seems to be the marriage that doomed the legislation over the last two sessions.
Well, the short answer is I don't think so, because for many of us, the incentives that are needed to increase supply are something we support, but not in a vacuum and not without protecting tenants in their existing homes. If all we're doing is increasing supply but continuing to have it be easy for people to get evicted, we're not accomplishing very much. And so for those that say, generally the wealthy developers who say, let us just build our way out of this, is very reminiscent of Reaganomics, just build and build and build, and eventually the market will take care of itself. I don't think that's where a lot of the legislature stands. We believe that, yes, create incentives to build real affordable housing. We absolutely need that, but also protect people in their existing homes. When you put those two together, you have a real good comprehensive approach to keeping people in their homes and giving them new ones they can afford. That's what we're trying to do.
Well, I mean,
not have half a loaf, but the whole thing.
Well, I mean, the other side of that, of course, is that shutting off the pipeline will only make rents rise, right? And frankly, make evictions more likely, right?
Yeah, like I said, we support the concept of additional building, but if we're doing only that and not protecting people in their existing homes, we're not accomplishing very much. And so doing one without the other doesn't seem wise to me and to many of my colleagues.
Let me move on to the other big issue in your inbox. The Redistricting Commission is scheduled to redraw maps by February 28th. Do you think the commission is going to come to an agreement that you all can live with? Because at that point, I believe you'll be able to alter them pretty freely, plus or minus 2%.
Well, no one knows. This whole process has been unprecedented. We had a court decision that went completely haywire last year and removed the power to draw these lines from an entire branch of government. I'm glad that this current court with the new chief judge has found a better way forward. And now we're back to the process as it should have been last year. What the commission does is anybody's guess. Last year, the Republican members refused to attend meetings. That was really the linchpin of how this unraveled. They refused to attend meetings, denying a quorum, so the commission couldn't even vote on a plan. And ultimately, the court said, because the commission didn't vote on a second plan, we didn't have the power to do anything. So it was a foolish decision then. The court has now rewound the clock, and hopefully the commission will be able to meet or be forced to meet to do what they were supposed to do.
Well, yeah, I mean, but picking up on that, I mean, what's going to make it different this time? What if they decide they don't like the process, they don't agree with the Court of Appeals, they're not coming to the next meeting, they're busy, whatever it may be? How do you prevent another court intervention of the kind we saw last year?
Well, the court in its decision a couple of weeks back was very clear that they would have no problem intervening to force this commission to do its job. And so hopefully it won't come to that, but they seem to open the door to having a court order for these commissioners to meet around a table and actually take a vote. They don't have to, they can't be forced to agree on a particular plan, but they can and should be forced to do their jobs and sit around the table and cast a vote. And at that point, that allows the process to move forward.
Yeah, and so if it should come to the legislature, is there already, I guess, an inter-branch panel that would be set to look at it? Do you already have committees ready to do work on it if it should come to that?
Well, there's a standing committee called LAT4, which is the Legislative Task Force on Reapportionment. I am the Senate co-chair together with Assemblymember Zabrowski on the Assembly side. But we are, like everyone else, awaiting the work of the commission at this point. So we're not drawing maps. We're not thinking about drawing maps. We're just waiting and hoping that the commission gives us something we can work with.
Okay. We'll wish you the best of luck as the session gets underway. I know it's going to be a tough one. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Errol.
Okay, that is going to do it for tonight's show. Thanks for watching and have a great evening. We'll see you next time inside City Hall.